welcome. This is Vlatka of Shamanist Crystals and the Sound Shamanist, and today I have a sound story for you called Sister Wolf and Grandmother Moon. And it starts off a long time ago in a village far away. There lived a young girl, and her name was Yarrow. She was as bright as the sun and loved to run barefoot in the meadows between the forest and the village. And she was just such a light-hearted, radiant being. She had so much fun playing with the animals, and she loved to water the plants and learn all about the plants from her mother, who had learned from her grandmother and her mother before her. And all seemed to be going very well. This village also happened to be friends with a wolf, a she-wolf. And Yarrow in particular had a relationship with this she-wolf. And the two of them would often communicate telepathically. It was just something natural. It was an easy ability that Yarrow had. And on one particular day, Yarrow was looking for the she-wolf, and the she-wolf had been gone for several days. And Yarrow was concerned because something was out of sorts in the village. She noticed that day by day people were losing their memory, the memories of the old ways. They forgot about the plants. They forgot about that the animals were their brothers and sisters. They forgot that the earth was their mother. And Yarrow too was starting to forget. And she was so concerned about this that she called on the she-wolf. Now the she-wolf had taught her how to call her. So when Yarrow called, the she-wolf appeared. And Yarrow told the she-wolf that people were forgetting the old ways in the village. And it was a real concern. It was like everybody was forgetting, and she was starting to forget. And she wanted to make sure she didn't forget completely. She didn't want to forget the wolf. She didn't want to forget the earth and the plants and the animals and the moon and her kinship with them. So she told the she-wolf, and the she-wolf said that she would speak to Grandmother Moon on their behalf and find out what was going on. So the she-wolf climbed up the highest hill until she could see Grandmother Moon in her full glory. And she called on Grandmother Moon. And Grandmother Moon came out and said, "I hear you, Sister Wolf. What seems to be the matter?" Because she could tell that Sister Wolf was very, very upset. So Sister Wolf told Grandmother Moon what was going on. And she said, my little friend Yarrow is starting to forget. She's starting to forget me. She's starting to forget you. She's starting to forget all the plants. She's starting to forget. So Grandmother Moon, she kind of scanned the horizon, and she noticed that in the forest, amongst all the different spirits, there was one that happened to be quite mischievous. And she called on that spirit, and he showed up. "Well, what do you want?" he said. Well, Grandmother Moon said, there seems to be something amiss in the village. Do you happen to know anything about it?" Well, maybe, maybe not. So Grandmother Moon shone her light into this dark spirit, this mischievous one, and he lit up. And when he was illuminated by Grandmother Moon, he could only speak the truth. Well, maybe I snuck in a little bit of memory loss powder in the water. And so the mystery was solved for now. Grandmother Moon, she told that mischievous spirit that from now on he had to temper his mischievousness and find some way to maybe do practical jokes, but nothing that would hurt the humans. So he agreed for now and went off on his jolly way. So in the meantime, Sister Wolf said, well, what are we going to do? How are we going to counter this? And Grandmother Moon, she was quiet for a moment. And then she said, tell Yarrow to call on the ancestors. Well, how's that going to help? Asked Sister Wolf. And Grandmother Moon smiled and said, tell Yarrow to call on the ancestors. And so Wolf thought, okay, well, Grandmother Moon must know. She's old and she's wise. And she hurried back. She ran back to the village and found Yarrow. And Yarrow's memory was starting to slip more. And so, but she did remember the she-wolf. As soon as the she-wolf started to... And then Yarrow, she held back. And that seemed to kind of bring her memory back enough to know. And so she said, well, what did Grandmother Moon say? And the she-wolf said, well, you need to call on the ancestors. And somehow they're going to help, reverse this memory loss of the old ways in your village. And so that very night, underneath the full moon, with Grandmother Moon's love glowing down upon her, Yarrow called on the ancestors. She placed a candle on the rock. She brought some sweets for them, some sweet bread for the ancestors. She brought fresh flowers. She lit the candle. She lit more than one. And she called upon her ancestors, her grandmothers and grandfathers, the benevolent ones, the ones that could help, that had good intentions. And then she waited. And then she heard the crunching of leaves, the breaking of twigs, and they came. Her grandmothers, her grandfathers. And when they surrounded her, she felt their love pouring into them. And she told them what the matter was. And in her mind, she saw plants. She saw mugwort. She saw lady's mantle. She saw rosemary. And there were a few others. And she knew what she needed to do. So before the dawn, she went and found the plants and she cut them. Now, before she did all this, she thanked the grandmothers and the grandfathers. And then, before the dawn, she cut the plants and she brewed the tea the way she knew to brew. She remembered. The grandmothers and grandfathers helped her to remember. And then, the very next day, she made sure that with the morning breakfast, everybody had a cup of tea. And within the next few hours, they started to remember. Maybe it was one memory. Maybe it was a memory of how a grandmother had planted certain herbs in the garden and used it for helping heal certain things in the family. Maybe they remembered that she-wolf was a friend to the villagers. Maybe they remembered some of the rituals and ceremonies and songs and dances for the full moon. Maybe they remembered that they were one with Mother Earth and how to respect her. But one by one, the villagers started to remember again. And then, so excited, Yarrow ran to find her friend, and she called on She-Wolf, and She-Wolf called back. And the two of them ran all the way up the tallest hill until Grandmother Moon was shining down upon them, and she smiled the widest smile. And both She-Wolf and Yarrow thanked Grandmother Moon, and Grandmother Moon bathed them with her light. And from that day on, the villagers always made sure that they honored their ancestors, they honored their memories, and they honored the old ways. And as for Yarrow, some say she's still running wild with the She-Wolf underneath a full moon. And that, my friend, is the end of the story. For now, Sajen.